I'd been winding down for the night, eyes burning from a long day of financial reporting and back-to-back work meetings, ready to slip into bed and shut off the world. My suburban Dallas apartment was quiet, the kind of stillness that only settles after 10 o'clock. Soft hum of the air conditioner, distant traffic fading outside the window. No noise, no drama, just peace. For once I thought I'd get an unbroken night's rest. Then my phone lit up on the nightstand, bright and insistent, cutting through the dim bedroom dark. It was a group message from my mom. Sharon sent to the small family thread that included me, my older sister Brittany, and my younger brother Tyler. I rarely opened those messages first thing anymore. Years of passive-aggressive comments, last-minute demands, and subtle jabs had taught me to brace myself before reading anything my family typed. But something about the dead serious tone of her text preview made my stomach drop before I even tapped it open. "We've agreed you're no longer part of the family," the message read, plain and unflinching. "Don't come to any gatherings, holidays, dinners, or family events from here on out. You're excluded." I stared at the words for a long, hollow beat, my thumb hovering frozen over the screen. There was no explanation, no lead-up, no attempt to talk things through. No argument, no fight, no warning. Just a cold final verdict handed down like I'd committed some unforgivable betrayal. I'd spent my entire adult life bending over backward for these people, and they'd tossed me aside in a single sentence. Before I could even process the sharp ache in my chest, I saw it. Beneath my mom's brutal message, Brittany had left a like. A bright, tiny heart icon, solid and unmissable. My own older sister hadn't just agreed with the decision, she'd celebrated it. She'd actively affirmed cutting me out entirely. I exhaled slowly, all the tension and quiet hope I'd clung to for years rushing out of me at once. For so long, I'd told myself I just needed to try harder, give more, be more understanding. If I covered more bills, tolerated more disrespect, and ignored more unfairness, eventually they'd see me as more than a walking bank account. I'd stayed loyal, kept the peace, and swallowed endless slights just to hold my family together. But that single like stripped away every last illusion. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a choice they'd all made together. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't type out a desperate defense or beg for a second chance. For the first time in my life, I felt completely, undeniably calm. The years of one-sided sacrifice, of automatic payments and unappreciated favors, of showing up for people who never showed up for me, all of it crashed into place in that moment. My fingers moved steady and sure as I typed my reply. No bitterness, no drama, just cold, unvarnished truth. Thanks for confirming. I'll cancel all the auto payments effective immediately. I hit send and locked my phone, setting it face down on the nightstand. There was no need to elaborate.
They knew exactly what those auto payments were.
They knew I'd been covering their lives for years. Sharon's monthly utility bills and prescription copays, Brittany's recurring gym and subscription charges she never bothered to pay herself, Tyler's sporadic credit card minimums and car insurance installments. I'd set up every automatic draft years ago, quietly shouldering their expenses to keep the family stable, to avoid the endless guilt trips they'd hurl if I said no. They'd grown so accustomed to my money covering their gaps that they'd forgotten every single payment was a choice I'd made for them, a choice I was finally revoking. I laid back in bed, fully awake now, waiting for the fallout I knew was coming. I didn't have to wait long. At exactly 12:03 a.m., my phone exploded. One incoming call blared through the silent room, then another, then another. The screen flashed my mom's name over and over, followed instantly by Brittany, then a string of unknown numbers I recognized as burner lines they used to spam me when I didn't answer fast enough. Vibrations rattled the wood of my nightstand, relentless and frantic, breaking the quiet midnight air. Calls stacked up in real time, overlapping, desperate, nothing like the casual disregard they'd shown me 30 minutes prior. I stared at the chaotic flashing screen, no longer feeling hurt or confused. I felt clarity. Their warm family unity had lasted exactly as long as my bank account had been funding it. The second I threatened to stop pouring my money into their lives, the cold, calculated exclusion they'd handed me vanished into pure, unbridled panic. I'd been kicked out of the family with zero hesitation. Now they were blowing up my phone at midnight, terrified of losing the free financial safety net I'd spent years providing. I left the phone ringing. I didn't answer. I didn't text back. I simply watched the calls pile up, each one a louder admission of their true priorities. The family that had unanimously written me off now couldn't survive 5 minutes without my money. The old version of me would have caved, would have answered, apologized, backtracked, and kept the payments running just to earn back their hollow approval. But that version of me died the second I read that message and saw my sister's like. Tonight, I stopped sacrificing myself for people who'd never sacrificed a single thing for me. And the war for my boundaries, for my life, had only just begun. The non-stop calls kept coming well past 1 o'clock in the morning. My phone vibrated non-stop on the nightstand, lighting up the dark bedroom over and over again. I turned on Do Not Disturb, silencing the flood of incoming calls. But I could still see the missed call counter climbing higher every time I glanced over. Voicemail notifications popped up one after another, sharp red badges mocking the quiet peace I had tried to enjoy. I knew I could not avoid this forever. Sooner or later, they would find another way to reach me. I pulled up the voicemail folder and pressed play on Sharon's first message. Her voice was shrill, shaking with manufactured outrage, as if I had committed some terrible, unforgivable sin. "How dare you threaten to cut off our bills, Lindsay? This is exactly why we said you are no longer part of this family. You are cold-hearted and selfish. Blood is supposed to mean something to you. you. I gave you life. I raised you. And this is how you repay me? By holding basic necessities hostage? I closed my eyes and took a slow breath. That was their go-to play right out of the gate. Twist my defensive move into an act of cruelty. They had cast me out first, but now I was the villain for refusing to keep funding their lifestyle after being disowned. Brittany's voicemail came next. She sounded smug and indignant at the same time. You are being ridiculous. Mom and Dad gave you everything growing up. Now you throw a fit over a family disagreement and want to leave us all high and dry. Tyler can't miss his car insurance payment. Mom can't have her power turned off. Grow up and stop punishing all of us because your feelings got hurt. There was zero acknowledgement of her like on the group message. Not one word about the fact she had agreed with cutting me out. She acted as if I had invented the whole conflict out of thin air. The third message belonged to Tyler. He sounded annoyed more than hurt. Can you just knock this off? This auto-pay stuff is not a game. My credit will get destroyed if those payments stop. Whatever fight you are having with Mom, keep it away from my bills. None of them sounded sad about losing me as a daughter, sister, family member. Every single message was fixated on money, on the practical disaster my canceled auto payments would create for them. Not one person asked how I felt after being publicly exiled from the family group. By 7 the next morning, text messages began pouring in. Sharon flooded my inbox with long paragraphs about all the sacrifices she had made throughout my childhood. She listed doctor's visits, school clothes, home-cooked meals, every small favor she could recall, framing every memory as a debt I now owed her for life. According to her, my financial support was not generosity. It was repayment. Brittany sent screenshots to our old family chat, posting partial snippets of my reply. I'll cancel all the auto payments for extended relatives to see. She deliberately left out Sharon's original message disowning me and her own reaction. Within a couple hours, distant cousins and a handful of aunts started sliding into my DMs. Most of them only had half the story. They messaged me urging me to calm down, to stop being stubborn, to work this out with my mother. A few of those messages stung. Deep down, a small part of me still craved acceptance from my wider family. I worried everyone would believe their one-sided version of events. For a short moment, I wavered. Maybe I had overreacted. Maybe I should just leave the auto payments active and weather the cold shoulder, just to keep everyone from turning against me. But then I reopened the group chat screenshot I had saved the night before. I reread Sharon's disownment text and stared at Brittany's little heart reaction. The fog of self-doubt lifted. I had not started this fight. They had cast me out first. My only response was withdrawing voluntary financial support. I was not obligated to fund people who wanted nothing to do with me. I typed out a short neutral mass reply for all the concerned relatives messaging me. I did not scream or rant. I simply laid out the core facts without drama. I included screenshots of the disownment message and Brittany's blurred only the private phone numbers. I explained I had maintained years of automatic bill payments out of love, but those voluntary contributions could not reasonably continue after being formally excluded from the family unit. I hit send and locked my phone again. I expected more backlash. What I got instead was radio silence from most of those distant relatives. Many of them stopped messaging entirely once they saw the full context. Sharon saw my shared evidence shortly afterward. She exploded in a fresh text barrage. Furious I had shared the original group chat with other family members. She accused me of airing dirty laundry, of humiliating her on purpose. I sat at my kitchen counter sipping cold coffee, reading her angry messages, and felt nothing like guilt. I felt resolve hardening inside of me. The moral high ground they thought they held was crumbling fast. But this was only round 2. They were not finished trying to manipulate me into restoring those payments. By mid-morning, Sharon was no longer trying to win over distant cousins. She shifted her strategy, sending me long, angry texts demanding I reverse the auto-pay cancellations before any bills actually failed to process. She kept repeating the same talking points. I owed them. I was acting out of petty spite, and I would carry the guilt if anyone's utilities got shut off or Tyler's credit score took damage. Brittany chimed in every few messages, backing our mother up, pushing the narrative that I was destroying the whole household out of hurt feelings. I had already logged into every banking app early that morning. One by one, I located each recurring auto draft tied to my family. I paused the utility payment for Sharon's house. I canceled Brittany's gym subscription and her streaming bundle that I had covered for almost 4 years. I pulled the plug on Tyler's minimum credit card payment and his monthly car insurance contribution. Every single recurring charge vanished from my scheduled payment list. There was no going back. I kept a detailed personal ledger on my laptop, a spreadsheet I had started years ago just to keep my own finances organized. It was never meant to be used as a weapon. I had tracked every voluntary transfer, every auto bill, every emergency cash gift I had sent them over the past 7 years. As I scrolled through the rows, the numbers stacked higher and higher, close to $42,000 total. Money I had earned through overtime, through tight personal budgeting, through skipping my own vacations and personal upgrades so I could keep bailing them out. I had never once asked for repayment. I never posted those numbers anywhere. Never bragged about my generosity. I just quietly gave, hoping my effort would translate into genuine love and respect. Instead, it had only bred expectation and entitlement. Sharon called again, and this time I answered. I put her on speakerphone and kept my spreadsheet open in front of me. Her voice exploded through the speaker the second the line connected. Have you put those payments back yet? What is wrong with you? Do you want me sitting in a cold, dark house this winter? I haven't restored any of the auto payments, I said evenly. Before you keep calling me cruel, let's talk about what those payments actually represent. For 7 years, I have covered your electric, water, and prescription tuition costs. I paid for Brittany's subscriptions so she could afford to go out with friends. I covered portions of Tyler's car and credit debt because he refuses to hold steady full-time employment. In total, I have sent roughly $42,000 toward this family. There was a short, stunned pause on the other end of the line. She clearly had never added up how much I had actually given them. Quickly, she recovered, falling back to manipulation. Money does not erase your family duties. You should want to take care of your mother and siblings. Wanting to is different from being forced to after you disown me, I replied. Voluntary help ends when you publicly declare I am no longer part of the family. You cannot lock me out of gatherings, write me off in a group chat, and still demand my paycheck every month. Brittany must have been listening nearby, because she grabbed the phone and jumped in. Loud and defensive. You chose to set up those payments. No one held a gun to your head. That was your choice, so you have to keep doing it. That was my choice of generosity, I corrected her. Generosity is not a lifelong binding contract. I can end it. Tyler got on the line next. He sounded panicked now, not merely annoyed. He understood exactly what canceled insurance and missed credit card payments would do to his already fragile financial record. He did not apologize for anything that had happened in the group chat. He just begged me to think of his credit score. I ended the call shortly after that. None of them could argue against the ledger, so they fell back on emotion and obligation. They could not win on facts, so they fought with guilt. I knew they would not stop here. They would go to other family members again, spin new stories, and try to pressure me from every angle. My extended family had seen screenshots of the group chat, but many still clung to the old belief that children must unconditionally support blood relatives, no matter how badly they were treated. I saved my full ledger as a secure file, just in case I needed it later. I would not go searching for a fight, but I would not be caught unprepared either. The financial dam had broken. Now the real pressure from the wider family circle was about to crash down on me. Over the next 48 hours, the pressure campaign from my extended relatives ramped up hard. Aunts, uncles, and older cousins began reaching out in waves. Some called, some texted. Several even showed up in my social media comment sections. Most had seen the chat screenshots I shared, yet they still urged compromise. Their arguments all followed the same frustrating pattern. They would acknowledge that Sharon's disownment message had been harsh. They might even admit Brittany should not have liked that message. But then they would pivot. Family is messy. Blood overrides hurt feelings. I should be the bigger person. Restore the payments, smooth things over, and do not let money tear everyone apart. Very few stopped to ask why I was expected to keep funding people who had formally rejected me. One of my older uncles called me for a long conversation. He was normally fair-minded, and I had respected him growing up. I hoped he might understand my position. Instead, he told me I was letting pride cloud my judgment. Lindsay, your mom is getting older. She does not have much income. Cutting those bills puts her in real hardship. Even if they handled this poorly, you cannot stand by and let her suffer. I never wished hardship on her, I told him. What I wish is for people to stop treating my income as a safety net they get to use while they exclude me. If they want my financial support, they cannot simultaneously vote me out of the family. He sighed heavily over the phone. That is not how family works. You do not withhold help to punish them. I am not punishing them. I am withdrawing voluntary gifts. There is a difference. Our conversation went in circles. He could not wrap his mind around my boundary. For him, filial duty came before personal dignity. After we hung up, a wave of self-doubt washed over me again. Maybe I really was being too rigid. Maybe I should find some middle ground. I opened my banking app and stared at the list of canceled payments, almost tempted to turn one or two back on just to quiet everyone's criticism. Then I received a new screenshot, forwarded to me by a distant cousin who felt bad for me. It was a private conversation between Sharon, Brittany, and a couple of my aunts. Sharon was complaining about me, but she also admitted something revealing. She said once I caved and restored the auto payments, they would just keep me locked out of family events anyway. They planned to take my money, but still keep treating me as an outsider. That message burned every last trace of hesitation out of my system. They were not looking for reconciliation. They wanted my money, with zero obligation to treat me well in return. My relatives pleading for compromise had no idea Sharon's true intentions. I sent that screenshot to the fair-minded uncle who had called me. I did not add angry commentary. I just let Sharon's own words speak for themselves. His reply came an hour later, short and quiet. He apologized for pushing me to compromise without knowing the full truth. He said he would no longer pressure me. Word began to trickle through the family. A small number of relatives shifted to my side, but many others refused to believe Sharon would be that calculating. They dismissed the screenshot as taken out of context, or claimed she was just speaking in anger. The family split solidified. There was no middle ground anymore. You either stood with Sharon's household, or you stood with me. There was no neutral space left. Brittany grew desperate. She texted me privately, not yelling for once, trying to plant seeds of remorse in my head. She told me Mom was heartbroken, that Tyler was stressed about his credit, that our whole household was falling apart. She painted me as the cold architect of all their suffering. She still never mentioned her heart reaction on that group chat. She acted as if she was merely an innocent bystander caught in my conflict with our mother. I saw through every bit of it. This was damage control. They were starting to feel the real weight of living without my monthly subsidies, and they wanted me to rescue them from consequences they had earned themselves. The crisis was not created by me. It was created by their choice to disown me while relying on my money. The first overdue bill notices would hit their mailboxes soon. I knew the worst of this fight was still ahead. 3 days after I canceled all auto payments, The first real-world consequences landed in Sharon's household. I learned the details through a cousin who kept me loosely updated, someone who wanted no part in picking sides but hated seeing lies spread. Sharon's utility company sent a formal late notice. Her electricity was scheduled for potential disconnection in 14 days if payment was not received. Brittany's gym membership lapsed, and she got hit with late fees on her streaming bundle that I had previously covered. Tyler's credit card minimum went unpaid. His credit score dropped immediately, and collection reminder emails flooded his inbox. His car insurance policy was flagged for non-payment, putting his vehicle at risk. Panic set in over at their house. With no automatic drafts from my bank account propping them up, they were forced to confront bills they had ignored for years. None of them had built emergency savings. They had grown comfortable living beyond their actual income, because I had always filled the gaps. Sharon switched tactics once more. Outright rage was not working, so she leaned hard into public martyrdom. She posted vague, sad-sounding posts on her social media page. She talked about family betrayal, about being abandoned in old age, about how cruel blood relatives could be. She did not name me directly, but every person in our family circle knew exactly who she was writing about. Many distant family members reacted with sympathy, offering comforting comments. Brittany shared those posts, adding her own mournful captions. It painted a powerful one-sided picture for anyone who had not seen the original group chat evidence. Tyler took a different route. He called me, not screaming, but pleading. His pride was cracking. For the first time, he admitted he had gotten used to me covering portions of his bills. He said he knew he had not been grateful enough over the years. He begged me to restore at least his car insurance payment, saying he could not get to work without his vehicle. I listened carefully, but I did not give in. Tyler, I cannot keep paying your bills while your household officially treats me like I am not family. If you want help from me, that situation has to change. This is not only about money. This is about basic respect. He did not want to talk about the group chat, or the disownment, or Brittany's like. He just wanted the money fixed. When I would not budge, he grew frustrated again, accused me of making everything complicated, and hung up. I could feel the pull of guilt tugging at me. I imagined Sharon sitting in a dark house without power. I imagined Tyler losing his car. I hated the idea of people I grew up with suffering hardship. But I kept going back to that saved screenshot. They had cast me out first. They had been fully ready to cut me off from every holiday and gathering, while still expecting my money to keep flowing. My compassion could not be infinite. Some of my extended family who had previously pressured me started to see the bigger picture. They watched Sharon's martyr-style social media posts, and then they reread the original group chat evidence I had shared. More relatives stepped away from supporting Sharon. A couple of aunts privately messaged me to say they understood my position, even if they would not publicly take my side online. Sharon noticed her support shrinking. She grew furious that she could no longer rally most of the wider family against me. She decided to escalate. She announced she wanted an in-person family meeting. She texted me, demanding I drive over to her house on Saturday afternoon. All my aunts, uncles, Brittany, and Tyler would be present. It would be a full family reckoning. I thought long and hard about whether I should go. Part of me wanted to avoid a face-to-face confrontation, but I knew hiding would let them spin whatever story they wanted behind my back. If I showed up, I could lay all the evidence out in front of every important family member all at once. I could stop the endless social media martyr act. I texted back one simple reply. I will be there Saturday. The stage was set for the big showdown. All the receipts, all the screenshots, all the years of financial records were ready. One way or another, this long-running conflict would reach a turning point that weekend. Saturday afternoon arrived bright and warm. I drove across town toward my mother's house with a folder in my passenger seat. Inside were printed screenshots of the disownment group chat, Brittany's reaction, copies of bank transaction records, and my 7-year financial ledger. I was not going there to yell or to humiliate anyone. I was going there so every family member in that room would hear the complete, unfiltered truth. When I pulled into the driveway, multiple cars were parked out front. The whole household plus several aunts and uncles were already inside. I took a deep breath, grabbed my folder, and walked through the front door. The living room was packed. Tense, heavy silence fell the moment I stepped inside. Sharon sat on the couch, her face tight and hard. Brittany sat beside her, arms crossed. Tyler slouched in a chair off to the side, looking stressed and resentful. My aunts and uncles sat scattered around the room, watching me carefully. Sharon opened the meeting immediately. She wasted no time on pleasantries. She spoke in a loud, trembling voice, performing hurt for the audience of relatives. You are here today because you have torn our family apart. You have cut off my utilities, endangered Tyler's livelihood, and left Brittany struggling with bills she cannot afford. All because your feelings got hurt over a simple family discussion. You have become greedy and cold-hearted. She went on for several minutes, retelling her version of events. She omitted that she had written the disownment message. She skipped over Brittany's She framed everything as my selfish overreaction. When she finished, several relatives nodded, already partially persuaded by her performance. When she paused, I stepped forward, set my folder down on the coffee table, and began to speak calmly. Before everyone judges me based only on what Sharon has told you, please look at these documents. I passed printed copies around the room. First, the group chat screenshot. Every person in that room read Sharon's line that I was no longer part of the family, and saw Brittany's heart reaction sitting directly underneath it. A murmur rippled through the room. Several family members' eyes widened. They had never fully grasped how brutal that original exchange had been. Next, I handed out printouts of bank transfers and my full ledger. $42,000 in voluntary payments over 7 years, itemized line by line. I explained each auto payment I had canceled, and exactly what expenses I had been covering for them year after year. I never expected praise for this money. I gave it out of love. But voluntary financial support cannot reasonably continue when you formally vote me out of the family unit. You cannot lock me out of holidays and gatherings, and still demand I keep funding your household. Brittany jumped in, defensive and angry. Those payments were your choice. You cannot take them away just because you are mad. I can end a voluntary gift, I replied. That is what voluntary means. Tyler spoke up next. But our lives are falling apart now. Mom's power is about to get cut off. I never wished that on anyone, I told him. But that outcome comes from relying on money that was never guaranteed to keep flowing forever. Sharon saw her narrative crumbling in front of her own relatives. She grew desperate. She switched away from facts and leaned entirely into emotional appeal. She started talking about giving birth to me, about raising me, about all the sacrifices she had made decades ago. Tears formed in her eyes. Real or performed. I gave you your life. Do all those years of motherhood mean absolutely nothing to you? Your care when I was a child matters, I acknowledged. But that does not grant you unlimited claim to my adult income, especially after you choose to exclude me from the family. Some of the aunts and uncles flipped through my paperwork, thinking quietly. The evidence was unambiguous. Slowly, one uncle spoke up. Sharon, you cannot disown your daughter in a group chat and then demand she keep paying your bills. That does not add up, another aunt nodded. I did not realize how much Lindsay has been carrying all these years. Sharon's face turned red. She could not argue against printed bank records and chat screenshots. She had lost most of the room. Instead of accepting that reality, she exploded. She shouted that I had come only to embarrass her, that I was destroying the family on purpose. She told me I could leave. I gathered my folder. I had laid every fact on the table. I had nothing more to prove in that room. I came here so everyone could hear the full truth. I am not forcing any outcome. My boundaries remain unchanged. I will not restore auto payments while I am excluded from this family. With that, I walked out of her house and drove home. The meeting was over, but I knew the fallout would keep unfolding. The family could not pretend the old unfair rules still existed anymore. In the days right after the Saturday family meeting, the household's united front began to fracture. The magic of group chat solidarity vanished once hard real-world consequences pressed down on each of them individually. Sharon's electricity cutoff date drew near. She scrambled to find a way to cover the utility bill without my auto payment. She asked around among relatives for small loans. Several family members felt sympathy for her situation, but most had seen my documentation, and they hesitated to bail her out. They understood that giving her money would only allow the toxic dynamic to keep going. A couple gave her tiny amounts, nowhere near enough to cover the full utility balance. Brittany was hit with late fees on her former subscriptions. Without me paying for those services, she had to decide which monthly luxuries she could afford to keep. She was furious about losing conveniences she had taken for granted for years. Privately, she started to grow resentful toward Sharon. She began texting distant cousins complaining that Mom's harsh disownment message had sparked the whole mess. She conveniently still ignored her own reaction, but for the first time she was not fully standing 100% behind every choice our mother made. Tyler's situation was the most urgent of all. His car insurance was lapsing. If he drove without valid coverage, he risked tickets, fines, and total financial ruin. His credit score kept dropping as his credit card remained unpaid. He had no savings to fall back on. For years he had counted on me to patch over his financial mistakes. Now there was no safety net. Tyler texted me privately one evening. His tone was completely different from before. There was no anger, no entitlement, just exhaustion. I have been thinking a lot. I took your help for granted. I never stopped to appreciate how much you covered for me. I hate where we are right now. I hate that our family got to this place. It was the closest he had ever come to genuine acknowledgement, but he still did not address the core issue, the family's formal decision to cut me out. I wrote back honestly. I appreciate you saying that, but the original problem still stands. Your household disowned me in that group chat. Until that is addressed, I cannot go back to automatically covering your bills. Tyler did not reply right away. He was caught in a terrible spot. He needed financial help, but he was not ready to push back against Sharon and Brittany about the way they had treated me. He was stuck between self-interest and family loyalty. Sharon noticed cracks opening inside her own household. She saw Brittany's quiet resentment and Tyler's desperation. She doubled down on martyr behavior to hold them all together. She kept posting sad social media updates, reminding everyone how much suffering we were all going through because of me. She tried to frame any frustration from Brittany and Tyler as frustration directed toward me, not toward her own choices. Word drifted back to me from cousins. Fights were breaking out inside Sharon's house. Brittany and Tyler were starting to argue with their mother about the disownment text. They were beginning to realize that Sharon's impulsive message had destroyed the free financial support they had relied on for so long. They had gone along with cutting me out, but they had never fully thought through what life without my money would actually look like. Some relatives reached out to me, suggesting a possible compromise. They said said maybe Sharon would take back the disownment statement, but I should still keep helping with some limited bills. I thought hard about that offer. I weighed whether partial support would feel like dignity, or whether I would just slip back into the old cycle of giving while being disrespected. In the end, I declined the compromise proposal. Partial payments with partial respect would leave me trapped in the same pattern. I would keep giving, and sooner or later they would revert back to treating me as an outsider. Real change required full, honest accountability, not half-measure deals. Sharon learned I had rejected the compromise idea. She flew into another fit of rage. She sent me a long text saying I would regret being so hard-hearted. She insisted I would be lonely when I grew old with no family around me. I read her words without feeling shaken. I already understood there would be loneliness along this path. Setting firm boundaries against your own blood always carries a cost. But living continuously exploited was a far heavier burden. Their internal divisions kept deepening. The unified front that had sent that brutal midnight group message was crumbling apart from inside. The day before Sharon's scheduled electricity shutoff, she tried her final desperate play. She called every family member she could list and told them I was about to let her sit in a cold, dark house. She begged several aunts and uncles to pressure me one last time. She hoped collective family pressure would force me to cave at the very last moment. Relatives' calls and texts flooded my phone once again. Some were gentle pleas, some were frustrated lectures. But this time, most of them already knew the full story. They had seen the chat screenshots and my financial records. Many told Sharon directly that they could not blame me for my boundaries. They told her she needed to resolve the mess created by her own group chat message. Only 2 of my older aunts still sided completely with Sharon. They called me, pushing hard for me to make an exception just for the utility bill. Just pay this 1 month, Lindsay. After that, you can figure everything else out. Do not let your mother lose power over pride. I heard them out, but I would not bend. If I pay this one bill while still formally disowned, I send a clear message. They can exclude me, hurt me, and when crisis hits, I will still rescue them. That pattern will repeat forever. I cannot set that precedent. After those conversations ended, Sharon realized she could no longer weaponize the wider family against me. Almost no one was willing to pressure me into restoring payments. Her last big tool was gone. That evening, Tyler called me. He sounded worn down. He told me that inside their house, big fights had erupted. Brittany was furious about the late fees on her subscriptions. Tyler was terrified of driving without car insurance. Both of them were finally confronting Sharon about the disownment message. They told her that sending that text had been a huge mistake. Mom will not admit she was wrong, Tyler told me over the phone. She keeps saying she will not apologize because she is the mother. But Brittany and I both know none of this would be happening if she had never written that message. He told me that Brittany even admitted out loud that hitting the like button had been a bad call. It was not a sincere apology directed toward me, but it was acknowledgement that her action had contributed to the disaster their household was living through. I was surprised to hear that. For weeks, they had presented a perfectly united front. Now stress and real-world hardship had pried open the cracks between them. Tyler asked me a difficult question. What would it actually take for things to shift? What do you want from us? I answered plainly. Sharon needs to formally retract that disownment message. I need genuine acknowledgement from both you and Brittany about how you treated me in that group chat. Not just for show to get money flowing again. Real accountability. After that conversation happens, we can talk about what financial help, if any, makes sense. But money cannot come before respect. Tyler said he would talk to Sharon and Brittany about my conditions. He did not promise they would agree. He only promised he would try. I hung up and sat quietly in my apartment. Part of me wanted to hope this might lead to real healing, but I guarded my heart. I knew old habits were hard to break. Sharon had spent decades believing her children owed her unconditional obedience. Admitting she was wrong would go against everything she believed about family hierarchy. Hours passed. I did not hear back from Tyler. No apology text arrived. No retraction of the disownment message popped up in the old family group chat. Late that night, I got a short message from Tyler. Mom refuses to retract what she said. She says she will not humble herself. Brittany is torn. She sees the mess we are in, but she does not want to stand up to Mom. I do not know what comes next. My heart sank. I had laid out a clear path forward, and they could not bring themselves to take it. They wanted relief from their financial crisis, but they were unwilling to pay the emotional price of accountability. The next day arrived. Sharon's electricity was scheduled for disconnection. There was no last-minute miracle from me. I kept my boundaries firmly in place. Whatever happened next would be the consequence of their own choices. Sharon's electric power was cut off mid-morning. I learned the news from a cousin's text. For the first day, Sharon tried to act as if it was not a major hardship. She posted defiant social media updates saying she would endure whatever came her way. But summer temperatures were high, and a house without air conditioning quickly grew unbearable. By evening, she could no longer keep up the tough performance. Inside the house, tension exploded. Brittany and Tyler confronted Sharon fiercely. They told her her stubborn refusal to take back the disownment message had landed them all in this crisis. They were angry, scared, and exhausted from living with late fees and unstable utilities. For the first time, Sharon could not make them back down. The shared pain of real-world consequences overpowered her maternal authority. That night, something unexpected happened. My phone pinged. It was a message in the old family group chat. Sharon was the sender. I sent words I cannot take back lightly. I should not have written that message cutting you out of the family. It was wrong. You are still my daughter. It was short, stiff, clearly difficult for her to type, but it was a formal retraction of the disownment. Right underneath her message, Brittany posted a reply. I hit the like on that message, and that was wrong. I should not have done done that. I see now how much that hurt you. Tyler followed next. I went along with everything without thinking about how you felt. I am sorry for that. I read those lines over multiple times. After weeks of conflict, denial, and martyrdom, they had finally offered the accountability I had asked for. It was not warm, gushy reconciliation. You could feel the pain and friction behind every sentence, but it was real. I sat with my phone for a long while. The hard part was not over just because apologies had arrived. Now I faced my own critical choice. The automatic payments stayed canceled. $42,000 of past giving was in the rearview mirror. I could not simply flip everything back to the old way. Going back to unlimited auto payments would reset the toxic cycle all over again. I typed my response into the group chat, careful and measured. I appreciate these words. This is the starting point, not the finish line. Trust will not rebuild overnight. I will not restore all the old automatic payments. That system created unhealthy dependency, and I will not recreate it. Moving forward, any financial help I offer will be occasional, voluntary, and never guaranteed. It will not become a permanent obligation again. I hit send. There was no celebration from their side. They had hoped the apologies would trigger instant restoration of every auto draft. Instead, they got a new set of ground rules. Sharon pushed back immediately. She wanted her monthly utility covered again, just like before. She argued that since she had apologized, everything should return to normal. Normal was what broke us, I replied. Normal meant I paid endless bills while being disrespected. That normal is gone. Brittany argued that at least some recurring payments should come back. Tyler hoped his car insurance support would resume, but I held my line. No recurring automatic drafts. No built-in monthly safety net funded by my paycheck. If they faced a genuine emergency, I might choose to help on a one-time basis. But there would be no more permanent, reliable subsidy. Over private text, Tyler told me he understood my position, even if he did not like it. Brittany remained frustrated. Sharon felt cheated, like she had performed her apology and not gotten the reward she expected. The rift was partially repaired, but it was not magically healed. The relationship would never return to how it used to be. Too much damage had been done. Too many ugly truths had been dragged out into the open. Some relatives messaged me saying I should be more generous now that apologies had arrived. Others supported my new boundaries. Family opinion remained split. I knew this was the real victory. I had won back my autonomy. I was no longer the family's guaranteed financial safety net. They could treat me as family, but they could no longer treat my bank account as their property. But there were real costs. Our relationship would always carry scars. Full warm closeness was unlikely. I had to accept that. Boundaries protect you, but they do not erase all pain. The final chapter would be about learning to live with that complicated new reality. Months slipped by after that explosive summer conflict. Life settled into a complicated, fragile new normal. Sharon never re-established automatic bill payments from my bank account. She got her electricity turned back on by taking out a small high-interest personal loan. It put her under new financial pressure. But it was debt she had taken on herself, not debt transferred onto me. Brittany canceled most of the luxury subscriptions I had once covered. She adjusted her lifestyle to match her real income. She still felt bitter sometimes about losing those conveniences, but she understood there was no going back to the old setup. Our relationship stayed distant. We could exchange polite messages on birthdays, but we were never going to become close, loving sisters. Too much had happened between us. I accepted that limitation. Tyler found a second part-time job to boost his income. He caught up on his credit card payments slowly. His credit score began to climb back upward. He learned to budget without relying on me to patch every financial mistake. He and I had occasional casual conversations. There was genuine regret from his side, but our bond remained guarded. I saw Sharon in person a handful of times at low-key family gatherings. There was awkwardness between us. The old easy mother-daughter warmth was gone forever. She could slip back into old patterns sometimes, making subtle hints about money or trying to nudge me toward taking over some household expense. Every time she did, I gently but firmly pushed the conversation back onto our new boundaries. Most of the time she backed off. She had learned my limits were not empty threats. Extended family dynamics stabilized as well. Some relatives remained firmly on Sharon's side, believing I had been unreasonably harsh. Others fully respected my choices. Many stayed neutral, choosing to avoid taking sides entirely. Family events were no longer the harmonious, perfect gatherings you see in movies. There was quiet tension in the air, but at least I was allowed to show up now. I was no longer officially exiled. I looked back on the whole midnight blow-up. That group chat message disowning me, Brittany's heart-shaped like, my reply canceling auto payments, the flood of midnight phone calls. That single night had blown open every hidden flaw in our family system. For years I had given and given, hoping money would buy me belonging. I learned the hard truth. Belonging cannot be purchased from your blood relatives. If respect is not freely given, no amount of your income will earn it for you. I thought often about the old version of myself. That younger Lindsay would have answered those midnight phone calls. She would have apologized, backtracked, restored the auto payments, and swallowed her hurt just to keep family peace. That woman no longer existed. I had shed that people-pleasing skin through fire and conflict. I did not celebrate the suffering my family went through. I took no joy in their overdue bills or their power being cut off. I wish they could have learned these lessons without such painful, real-world consequences. But I also did not feel guilty anymore for protecting my own life and finances. Setting boundaries against family is not cruelty. It is self-preservation. Occasionally, I get a message online from people who read fragments of this story from family gossip. Some call me cold. Others tell me I should have forgiven completely and gone back to paying everything. But I know my own reality. Forgiveness does not mean returning to exploitation. Reconciliation does not require resurrecting an abusive financial dynamic. I still send small, thoughtful gifts for birthdays and holidays. I show up when there is genuine crisis, but only on my own terms. No recurring obligations attached. I give because I choose to give, not because I am trapped by duty. Our family will never be the perfect, loving unit I once dreamed of having, but we have something more real. Honesty. Clear limits. No more pretending that my bank account equals my worth as a daughter and sister. That midnight when they wrote me out of the family ended up being the moment I saved myself. I lost the fantasy of the family I wanted, but I gained myself. And that trade-off was worth every difficult, painful moment along the way.